Hi everyone, it's Don and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, let's talk about the testing requirements that everybody, all the cruise lines are now doing, that you have to show a test 3 days before your cruise. And let's look at the way some cruise lines are doing it compared to other cruise lines. Okay, so right now, I know I've seen Royal Caribbean has been doing the testing for people at the ports. I don't know how long that will go on, but I know right now that you can get a test at the port, getting on the ship, provided by Royal Caribbean. Right now, as far as I know, Norwegian Cruise Line. Right now, as far as I know, Princess, Carnival, Royal Caribbean, you need to show up with a test. It can be a PCR test, it can be an antigen test, as long as it's approved by the CDC. But there are some caveats to that. The CDC has approved the home tests that you can buy at the pharmacies. And when you call some of these cruise lines, they say, yeah, the CDC approved it, so they're okay. And then you show up at the port and the cruise line says, no, it's not good enough. You need one that's from the pharmacy. And so a lot of confusion is going on. And as far as myself is concerned, I would not rely on a home test to get me on a cruise ship. I will only rely on tests done by a third party, not myself. Otherwise, I don't want to get, 3,000 miles away from here and have the cruise line go, sorry, that's not the right test. And now it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the ship leaves at 4. Where am I going to get a test done if the cruise line's not providing tests at the port? So let me explain to you also something that's going on right now. And here's the reasoning. Most of the cruise lines want people to show up with their test. Plain and simple, it's embarkation. Embarkation, if you show up with your test, takes about under an hour. You're in, you show your proof, you show your passport, here's my boarding pass, on you go into the ship. Not as long a process as showing up the port, going over for the test, going to a waiting area, waiting for the test to come clean, being brought onto the ship. That can take 3, 4, 5 hours in some cases, depending on the size of the ship and the amount of passengers getting on. That's 100% the reason the cruise lines are doing this. Because if it was just money, well, they could still do it at the cruise port and charge you for it. They could just say, okay, sign up for your testing at the port. It'll be this much money. You pay it as part of your cruise. And when you get there, you get tested. But no, it's a time thing. They don't want to be in port past the time that they want to leave. They want to be able to keep on a schedule. They want to follow their old schedule. Well, it's not the old schedule anymore. It's a sailing during COVID. It's a sailing during a pandemic. And it's a sailing where you have more protocols now than you had before the pandemic. So the cruise lines sort of might need to start adjusting these things and not thinking the old way. And start thinking, okay, well, maybe we do need to take 2 or 3 extra hours before we leave the port to accommodate our guests and our passengers. Now, if you're coming from the United States and you need a test, it's not as difficult. If you're coming from someplace else like Canada, well, yeah, or even, the United States, let's go with everybody. First of all, the smart cruiser, if you're any sort of distance away, will fly in the day before. So if you're going to fly in the day before, that leaves you 2 days to get a test. So let's say your cruise is on Saturday. That means you need to take your test on Wednesday. So you take your test on Wednesday, you fly on Friday, you cruise on Saturday. Well, what happens if your test doesn't come in? There's a perfect example that just happened. But quickly before I tell you this example of what happened to this one couple who did everything possible to get on their cruise ship, including taking 3 different COVID tests and still didn't get on board, let me just ask you, hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel. If you haven't done so already, it'll just notify you of all the videos coming out in the future. It's not a sign up for anything. Nothing's gonna hack your computer. It just really helps the channel out, and I would really, really appreciate it. A couple from Utah was going on Royal Caribbean. They were going to have celebrate their anniversary with a cruise, and just before the cruise, literally 2 days before the cruise, they received a brand new email, because the emails before that were saying you just need to show that you've been vaccinated. Proof of vaccination, and you don't need to show a test to get on board once you've been vaccinated. 2 days before their cruise, which apparently was on August 13th, is the day they got the email saying that you need to show up with a test. So this couple, oh my God. So they went to Walgreens, like everybody's telling people to do, right? I see it on Tony's channel. Just go to Walgreens. When I mentioned I was having trouble, go to Walgreens. I'm Canadian. It's a lot different to try to go to Walgreens when you're Canadian, trust me. Try and get an appointment when you're not an American citizen at Walgreens. It's a whole hassle. But besides that, they went and got it on the 13th, that day. And they took one of the home tests with them and did it as well. So that's a pretty good thing, right? Great. On the 14th, they flew in to their cruise, and they found out the next day when they got to the port that Walgreens still hadn't sent them their test. And the home test, the cruise port security said, no, that's not good enough. We need another one. So they ran to a medical center, got another quick test done there, got their results and ran back to the cruise, and the cruise had closed their doors 15 minutes beforehand and said, no, you can't get on board. And they weren't the only ones. There was about 20 other passengers in the same boat. Now, I do have a bone to pick with the cruise line in this case. If you remember when we were on the Celebrity Edge, all this started to change when they started saying people were going to need to start wearing masks again, and people were going to need to get tested getting on board. Well, when we got there, they had set up testing for everybody to get on board. Well, if you're sending out emails to people changing the process 2 days before their cruise, not even 3 or 4 days before the cruise, 2 days, you should have a backup. There should be testing there at the cruise port for those people who did go and get a cruise test that don't come in time. Because Walgreens does not guarantee a time delivery for your test. In order to guarantee a time, you got to go and spend extra money and go to usually a medical center and get it done there. And pay the extra money to get it done there, which is what I have done for my next cruise. So, yeah, I do have a bone to pick with the cruise lines. When they change the protocols, they should have backups in place for those people whose tests don't come. If you can show up at the cruise port and say, look, I took my test 3 days ago, it hasn't arrived yet. What do I do? That's not their fault. That's not anybody's fault. But the cruise lines should not just say, well, turn away then. Because they have the process, they should have the process set up to do a minimum amount of people. Are you telling me they could not have had any set up there to do 20 people? At all? They could not have made an arrangement with a local medical center to send people close by over to get a test in time for their cruise? They couldn't have done that? I think that's a big miss. And that goes for all the cruise lines. Not just, the only one I'm saying right now is Royal, because this is an example of something that happened on a Royal Caribbean cruise. But I'm saying this to all the cruise lines that are not offering tests at the port. Well, you should have some backup, because there is no guarantee that tests can happen. Even when you go, you could get a false reading and it doesn't show up any positive or negative. It just says, sorry, there was a mistake and you have to take another one. Well, it's too late. It's too late at that point to take. For instance, myself, I have to fly in the day before. I need a test for my flight. So I can't just take a test an hour or two before my cruise. I have to arrange my timing so that my test covers both my flight to my cruise and my cruise itself, including the pre-night hotel that I booked. So it becomes a real mess with the testing. And I think maybe, just maybe, instead of 3 days, maybe just go 4. And that would give people a little bit more time to get those things in there. But they can't go 4 because the CDC guidelines recommendation is 3 days. But they should have a backup at the cruise ports. You should not leave your clients high and dry because a COVID test did not arrive in time when they did everything possible, including a home test, to get on your cruise ship. That's just my opinion. Well, let me know what you guys think. Do you think the cruise line should have some sort of backup plan as a help if you can prove that you did take the test? I kind of think that should be a no-brainer. But I'm thinking as a passenger and a fan of cruising, what's best for the customer, not necessarily what's best for the business. Although in this case, I think it would be the same. Well, I hope you appreciate the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. To see more tips, more tricks, more travel vlogs from around the world, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, have yourself a safe and a great vacation.